So can you describe what Bashevis was like as a person?
Yes. Well, yeah, first of all, well, let me say, first of all, his politic, I mean, he had two things that were in conflict, really. He lived off the Yiddish, secular, social democratic world because he was supported by the Forward, the newspaper. He made a living from that before he became famous. They rescued him, really. So he lived off them, but he didn't like them. I mean, he had no respect or love for the secular Yiddish world that I came from and that newspaper represented. On the other hand, he had a great deal of respect for traditional Jewish life, but he himself wasn't religious or traditional. I mean, I don't know if he ate, bacon or anything. I think he was a vegetarian anyway. I forgot. But when he came to visit me for lunch, I had to tell Katya on the phone, remember, he's a vegetarian. And he loved rice and he loved eggs and things like that, but he wouldn't eat any meat. Probably didn't eat anything that was, blatantly non-Jewish, but he wasn't religious. So, he was non-religious, but he had this respect for the tradition. He didn't have any respect for the world that that supported him, that he grew up in, even in Warsaw when he went to the Pen Club, the Yiddish Pen Club, in Warsaw, the Yiddish Schreiberverein. He grew up in a. It was the secular, modern world that gave him a life and a career, but he didn't care about it. So anyhow, even in one of the novels, you remember, in The Magician of Lublin, there's a section where the magician goes to rest or something after he's tried to burglarize or something. And he goes into the synagogue and he sees some books there and he says, finally, a book that tells me what to do, what's right, see? So, in other words, secular literature, even the stuff he writes, is not really important. I mean, it's sort of a traditional view of secular culture, that it's irrelevant, not important. What's important is what's in the Talmud and in the Bible. And he had that. It's in that novel. If you read it carefully, you look for that, you'll see it. And his politics were sort of reactionary. He asked me, I drove him from Ojai to LA to my house for lunch. And he asked me, he says, you have a good governor here? I said, nah, he's not so good. What's the matter? Well, he doesn't give enough money for education, for example. It was Reagan at the time. And he said, well, for the police he gives money? I said, yeah, for the police he gives money. He had a sort of, he was a conservative in his politics. He was, in other words, not a typical Yiddish writer.